More Europe now. More Europe now. More Europe now. Hosted by Nana Walzer with resident expert Dirk van den Boom and special guests. Hi, hello, dear all of you magical people out there who found your way to us. And this is our 5th episode of More Europe Now. Today we'll dust off I have to get it now, our crystal balls and risk a glance into our near and potential future. We'll enjoy a sneak preview, so to say, into what is already in the unfolding in Europe, but has yet to manifest. And we will bask in something like a European fortune-telling cookie baking competition, because we want to know from our resident expert and our special guests today what wondrous evolutions could and should take place if they had a say in it. And they actually do have quite some say on the European level, so embrace yourselves for today's guests. This episode somehow flies under the Spice Girls hook line. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want, because we really, really want very much to know also from you out there how Europe should develop, what your ideas for a better, for a safer, for a greater Europe are. And we will make extra space for your wishes in this episode, because Europe is and will always be a process, never-ending process, and the future always starts now. Every now, again and again, every breath we take, every move we make, we are watching destiny unfold, while at the same time we are creating new realities to come. And this is what I'm deeply believing in, the power of us all. And on top of my conviction, one thing is sure and good to know: we are not alone. Today, as I mentioned, we will have one of the really even more important people from a European level with us. One of the vice presidents of the European Parliament will be here, who is an expert also in visionary yet realistic EU-volution scenarios. And if you have never heard the term EU-volution, you are not the only one. You even might say I'm crazy to just cite another song lyrics for today. Copyright so far in this introduction go to the Spice Girls, as I mentioned, to Sting and Sam Smith. So let's see if I can manage to quote only musicians starting with S today. And everyone needs a fine challenge once in a while. So this is mine for today. If you want to join in the fun, so that it might not only be us girls who want to have fun. Cindy Lauper, I fear she's not written with an S. Anyway, join me in the chat and find suiting songs and hook lines. I will be happy to read them if you're up for a challenge, which is, by the way, a song title of Yoko Shimomura from the soundtrack of Final Fantasy 15. Chat is Deutsch und English. Yes, please. Write English, write German. I'm happy, and I will try to read while talking. So I hope I can stop. If you cry out stop, you'd better stop before you go and break my heart. This might be just another song lyric from Sam Brown. Help, help, help me, Dirk. Help, be my savior,
No,
like
I won't.
you
No.
always are.
No, that's on you.
It's actually a song title of Shauna Edwards. Be my savior, like you always be. Welcome, everyone. The one of a kind, immensely kind, kinder than most probably any other highly trained expert with a record of hundreds of books written so far, thousands of people helped and educated through activities like migration counseling and political science professoring, to just invent another word. So good to sit with you on this fence together. It's so great that you give me shelter no matter what I do, to quote not only one, but two songs of the Stones. So that's from my side enough from the song lyrics. Dirk, you said hello already. Would you like to have a floor to say it properly?
Yes, thank you very much, Nana. Good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be here.
Yes, we also sprechen Deutsch, yeah. Normally, sogar noch viel mehr Deutsch als Englisch. Before we start, here comes our regular thank you to our supporters. This is the UEF, the Union of European Federalists, a non-partisan NGO with several hundreds of regional sections in about 30 countries, which is funded by the EC's SURF program, the European Commission's SURF program, and together with Europe Direct Vienna and BEJ Austria, we have the quartet of our core supporters full. Thanks to all of you, we can do what we do right now. So coming up next is our infinite source of wisdom, Dirk, dearest Dirk. Today we tackle the future of Europe, and here I still have it. It's quite heavy, my crystal ball, I have to say. And as I said, we want to know what you out there want and wish for. And I will say that 300 times today so that you hopefully write something in the chat to prepare the ground for your hopes and visions to get inspired. So to say, I'd like to ask Dirk in his roles of one, the realistic political science professor, yes, and two, the fantastic science fiction author. So let's start with the realistic question. All right, what future, dear Dirk, do you see coming up for Europe, short term and midterm?
Well, short term, I fear it's not very inspiring, but I have to say, because we've mentioned it in the preceding cast already, we have upcoming elections. The European elections are next year. Political parties are already gearing up, selecting candidates, developing platforms, and this will shape the European EU policy for the next months until the election day. So we will have a good dose of populism coming into the EU discussion, more than we have already, because now everyone wants to have its votes. All the different parties want to have their parliament that supports certain strategies and policies. We are afraid that it might be a parliament which is more to the right than it has been in the past, because of the resurgence of right-wing populism and radicalism in many countries of the European Union. Therefore, I fear that the next months until European elections will not be funny, will not be nice. It will be a fight. And I hope that many people who are eager to save and develop the European Union in a positive way will participate as well to countermand these more negative developments. But short term, not very inspiring area in my life. And I fear that we will talk about this many times in the next months, what will happen with these European elections. In the middle run, I would say, so if we look at the longer perspective, I'm not that pessimistic as many other peoples are right now, because they see some crisis elements in the European Union. But I like to look at the potential of the European Union. We have so many very intelligent people. We talk with some tonight. I hope the technical problems will not occur. We have so many intelligent people, not only in the European Parliament, but also in the Commission. Yes, we have bureaucracy, but if you do good bureaucracy, that's also can be an asset. So it's not always a bad thing. And I think that the potential there to develop the European Union in a positive way and to do good solutions in very important problems like migration, like climate change, and any others is there. And we should use it. But we need, I'm coming back to this, we need a good foundation. And the good foundation would be a European Parliament which can play a positive and constructive role.
So this comes back to the first inspiration I saw in the chat, cozy little life with food and creative activities. That is quite some wish, yes. So go and vote for it in the upcoming June 2024. Second question to you, a bit more creative, still very cozy. It's getting cozier by the question, I can tell you so much. A question for the fiction author in you, but still also to you as a human being, still. Next one will be different. What are your biggest wishes for the future of Europe? If you might have a fairy at hand to tell them to, especially also in the long-term perspective.
Well, to be honest, I have always been all my life a federalist. I've always, all my life, my political life, since a teenager when I started thinking about politics, I was a fervent supporter of European unification, about the utopia of the, I don't know if you call it European Federation, call it the United States of Europe. I don't care, actually. The names are not important, but that is the vision. And despite all the problems and setbacks and sometimes frustrations, that's still what is in my heart. So if you ask me about a utopia, I wouldn't call it utopia, because politics is never achieving these kind of levels. But if we can have a new push, a new vigor, a new optimism, a new drive towards European unification, the political union, finalize the political union, that would be my wish. But again, you want to listen to something inspiring. I'm now 56 years old. And to be very honest, while this is my dream and my wish, I have the fear that I will not be alive when this will be realized.
All right, so now actually we need your creativity and your vision and your alter ego that makes everything possible, because he can write it, it can become true. So here comes a crazy creative and complex question, just as you like them, addressing the science fiction author in you. If you take one, the European history, as well as two, the present storylines about Europe, and three, the potential future narratives, so European past, present, and future, into consideration, what book would you write about Europe? Who is the villain? Various drama and tragedy? What builds up constant suspense? Where to look for love and hope? Yes.
Well, I think you can put all this as a science fiction writer. I like space. I like spaceships. So I think you can condense all these things into a small place, and that is a spaceship, maybe sent by the European Space Agency, run by a future European Federation to visit, ideally, the Jupiter moon, Europa, and with a crew consisting of Europeans from all areas, from all corners of the European Union or the European Federation of the future. And then on that way, encountering problems, maybe getting a signal, maybe a potential first contact. It's good to have spicy aliens in a story. And this can be used to develop a story of a microcosm of what is Europe, what is the European Union, this spaceship traveling, and all the political surroundings. Well, how do you face such a challenge, such a mind-blowing discovery like an alien civilization? So I think this travel, this trip from Earth to the Jupiter moon Europa, with all the turbulences and challenges and activities, that could in a way be an allegory to the development of Europe and the unification, and also the challenges, the problems, and the conflicts accompanying it.
Okay, sometimes I wish we had aliens to attack us so we had a different common enemy than the climate change. Would perhaps unite us more in the world. Spoiler alert, my question is how does the book end? Do you have an ending already?
No, that wouldn't be nice. So maybe I have the chance to write that novel once, and it would be not very helpful if I disclose the end right now. But it will be a surprise. Don't worry.
All right. So we also don't know if it's a dystopia or an utopia in the end, I hope.
It will be both, like reality, because it has to reflect reality. So it has to be both.
Thank you so much. Well, this is some great lookout. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for this fortune-telling, creativity-wrenching first session. Our masterful crystal-gazing, fortune-telling, clairvoyant seer, if not to say prophet, Dirk. And back to you, dear people at home. I really mean it. We want to know today your visions and wishes for the next version of Europe. If you could give me some ideas, I would read them already. Is there anything in the chat? I don't see it right now.
I'm still a big fan of this cozy idea. I mean, maybe if the politicians we talked about today about the European Parliament, we should ask them, what ideas do you have to make a very cozy Europe? I'm getting old. I like cozy. I like it warm and cozy. So I think that should be on the political agenda of every party. I'm absolutely
totally agree. I totally agree. So let's see if we can continue with our program, because somehow I cannot scroll today. Anyway, I will be surprised. All right, I thought so. So are there coming any ideas? Not yet. Yes, you can wish for what you want. I can say so. Anyway, we will come back to the chat. We will read everything you get today, and we will also get the chance to recheck your ideas and visions with our hopefully soon to come first guest. And let's see if it can be realized what you wish for. So let me just start, because we're hopeful today, with a beautiful introduction of our first guest. We're very happy to welcome an expert who not only knows enormously much about Europe, but shapes the Europe we all live in since decades. And it was pretty difficult to reduce his CV to 5 lines of introduction. So I will take my time and introduce to you Rainer Wieland. He is a lawyer in the profession and has been a member of the European Parliament since 1997. And he's a vice president of the European Parliament since 2009. So he's really shaping Europe a long, long time now. He's a member there, for example, member of the Committee on Budgets and member of the Committee on Constitutional Affairs, to name just 2 of his assignments. And since 2011, Rainer Wieland is also the president of the Europa Union Deutschland. These are the European federalists in Germany. And I'm really looking forward to see if we have Mr. Wieland with us now.
We still have some small technical problem, it seems. They're still working on getting a connection.
They're working and getting go. So the next question goes out to you, unless I got some ideas.
We have
Oh,
we have we have
uh,
we have we have something
yes, we have.
because
We have. I see them. I see them.
Hobbit der Große has said, my hope.
Wonderful. A Europe without pushbacks and lesser brutal outer borders. I think this is a beautiful wish. Would you like to comment that, Dirk?
Well, we talked about migration policy already, and in fact, the fact that not all European member states follow the rules and regulations we have agreed upon in our border management is one of the setbacks and problems we have in the European Union. We need a unified migration policy, and it will not be a policy which opens the doors for everyone. That is very unrealistic. We will not also not be able to execute it. But on the other hand, we have to respect human rights. We cannot we cannot allow people to trample on them, especially if they are working for and with the European Union. We had a study out, just published this week, where it was quite clear that rescuing people from in the Mediterranean Sea is not a pull factor. It's not making it more attractive to migrate irregularly to the European Union. It's a duty to save these people, to save their lives, and then we can see what we can do with them. But to push them back into the sea, that is barbaric, and we shouldn't do it, and no one should do it. And even if we want a more restrictive migration policy, even if we want that, even if people want that, it's okay. But let's not do this. Let's respect human rights. And so I totally agree. We should have a border management which is respecting all the human rights, even of migrants who come here in an irregular way. They are human beings, and we should treat them like that.
That fits perfectly to the second vision I see here. The vision of a bit less dystopian than it is now would be nice. The Europe being like that. No populism, no discrimination, just EU quality and peace. Equality, EU quality. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I like it. Well, we have peace. We have peace. That is the good thing the European Union has accomplished, at least within our member states and in between our member states. We have conflicts, but we don't fight each other. There is peace outside directly our borders. That is something, a big reason for concern. I think the European Union can be a factor in promoting peace if the European Union is unified in its foreign policy, and also necessary in the way they do, for example, military interventions. And we see that this, unfortunately, is still necessary in our reality, in our geopolitical reality. And if the European Union can be an actor which acts positively, constructively, but also decisively if necessary, that could be a benefit for peace, not only for us here, but also in other regions of the world. We are very far away from that. We spoke in the past about security policy, and we know that there's still a lot needs to be done in the European Union. But I think that it is part of this European vision that this kind of unification of policies has to take place as well. There's also danger. I mean, we have to say it very often. The fact that you have armed forces of more than 1 million soldiers and have a new military bloc as the European Union can be dangerous if the wrong decisions are made. There we have the mechanisms in place in our political decision processes that we do not make the wrong decision. It is, of course, a big challenge. So we have to monitor that. So Nana, we have to continue this video podcast indefinitely, because we absolutely need to monitor if the right decisions are made.
Well, as long as we are still waiting for our special guest today, he makes it very exciting when he will come. We will be very happy. I have just another question for you that actually suits very well to the piece and the role Europe can take on in the world. Just this week on August the 2nd, a plea for Europe came from a quite unusual place. Pope Francis shared his dreams for a more peaceful and inclusive Europe and urged young people, especially, to inspire others to build together a better future in the face of the multiple crises facing the world today. He made a plea for Europe to revive the ideals of its founders and seek to build bridges of peace, fraternity, and inclusion with creativity in a world incapable of dealing with widespread problems in a united way. Here comes a quote. I dream of a Europe, the heart of the West, which employs its immense talents to settling conflicts and lighting lamps of hope. A Europe capable of recovering its youthful heart, looking to the greatness of the whole and beyond its immediate needs. A Europe inclusive of peoples and persons without chasing after ideologies and forms of ideological colonization, he says, as he addresses authorities. In that case, it was the civil society at the diplomatic corps at the Centro Cultural de Belém of Lisbon, where he has been. So this was quite a big quotation, but there was quite something in it, and very unifying coming from a pope. So what is your response or
Oh,
comment on that?
I like it if he takes it seriously. The first word you said was inclusive, and we have to be realistic. No offense against my dear friends who are the Catholic belief, but the Catholic Church is not always inclusive. There are certain groups where some problems are persisting, maybe a little bit less in Europe, as the Church is generally a little bit more liberal here. But if you look outside Europe, I don't want to go into detail. So I think I'm all for it, but I hope that the Catholic Church will be the first to be a shining example for that, so that we can follow and be happy that we have achieved this lofty goal.
Oh, wonderful. Here we are. Here we see him already in the backstage. I hope he will be with us in a second. Drum roll. No, not yet.
Ah,
Anyway, here he is. Welcome, Rainer Wieland. It's so great to see you. It's so good to have you.
welcome.
Thank you for being here with us.
Hello.
Hello, hello. You're ready for a ton of questions, I hope. So here comes the first one.
I'm ready for almost all.
Wonderful. Perfect. You know the European political system since the 1990s, at least, and we're witnessing the evolution of the European Union from the inside. So, in your opinion, in your experience, where do you see the biggest improvements in those past decades when it comes to European development? And what are the main challenges at this point in history for a strong and united Europe?
Well, I mean, I think for that we have to go back quite a bit, because the role as the role of the European Parliament as a co-legislator was I think the most remarkable step, and with the door opened and we had the step in the door, and then with the Lisbon Treaty we are almost on all fields. This is a bit difficult to understand. On all fields where the European Union is doing politics and is doing legislation, we are co-legislator. We have some fields where there is unanimity for enlargement, treaty changes, the financial framework. This needs unanimity in the council, but on all these fields we are more or less co-legislators. This is a bit different to things where the European Union is not doing politics with the union method, where they have collaboration, for example, foreign policy. The European Parliament is not a co-legislator, but this is not the classical EU politics. All what you know under the normal thing, this is EU politics, and there we have co-legislation for the Parliament, and I think this was the most important step. Next, possibly 1979, where I was not in politics yet, but I made some flyers in those days when the European Parliament was elected first in a direct election.
All right. Next year, the European election is coming up again in June 2024. All of us can vote for our European representatives in our nations. So that's how it works. So we decide who will be sent to the European Parliament and serve there for the next years. The election of the members of the European Parliament is the only one where we, the people, can directly elect for who is sitting in one of the European institutions. And considering the challenges Europe and the world is facing today, how do you see the role of the European Parliament in the moment? And do you have ideas for an even better functioning of the institution as the people's institution on the European level?
Well, I think we are not so bad. And if you look to the Eurobarometer, which we are doing twice a year, you will see that in most of the countries, the European Parliament has a better standing than the national parliaments on average, and in most of the countries. And then, of course, we could improve some things. On the moment, in the moment, if you look to Germany, the first chamber, the citizens' chamber, is in the position to outvote in some in some cases the second chamber, the council, if you want. This is not the case in the moment. The European Parliament needs an absolute majority. Possibly we could have equality of weapons there. And then, of course, I have to focus you onto the fact. I mean, you're a journalist, and you know exactly that in many cases, politics, the content of politics is broken down with people. Political positions are linked to people, and in the national politics, and if somebody becomes weaker, then the people became a less stable position, and all of that we do not have in Europe. If a legislation is failing, nobody says there is no majority for the Commission anymore. And so the vehicle of persons for political content is not working in the same way in Europe than in the member states. So therefore we need a European publicity, and this is what we are doing tonight, because we have by far too less formats where people are involved. You can listen in all languages. The European Parliament, you have some formats. Phoenix in Germany is transmitting sometime the European Parliament, but the visibility for that by a European transmitter is not yet in a function like you have in the member states, and possibly this is a major weakness we have in the moment.
Well, actually, here we're talking about one point that I also wanted to address. This is the so-called democratic legitimacy gap that is sometimes brought up front. It argues that the voices of the people are not heard enough on the European level. And one of the reasons they bring is actually that there is no so-called European public sphere. So there is not one European public that can be addressed by European media, because everything is so split up and so heterogeneous, most of all because of the multi-language situation in Europe. But there are also other arguments that there is that the democracy could be stronger on the European level, so people could participate more. Arguments like, for example, that the ways to interact with the European politics are a bit too complicated, or the influence of the European Parliament is still less significant than the power of other European institutions, such as the Council of the EU, where, as we all know, the state ministers sit in and the nations have their say, and the national interests are sometimes a lot louder than the European ones. So my question to you, how do you see the democracy of the future? Could Europe involve its citizens more? Could democracy become more lively? Are there also perhaps some learnings of the Conference of the Future of Europe, or from other single member states' political systems? How would you develop the democratic system?
I think this is a very bulky question, because the answer has several layers. First of all, I mean, I know you come from Austria. Your national parliament cannot sack a government in the member state. So there is no possibility for pressure from the national parliament to one of the members of the second chamber. Same is in Germany. And so I think it is not even desirable that the European Parliament has a legal power to make a government in a member state to step down. If somebody would like to get that, I think the European experiment would fail, because out of good reasons, the Austrians elect their chancellors, the Austrian chancellor, and not the Germans, and the French elect their president, and not the Portuguese. So this is very normal, and on a federalist system, this has good reasons. One thing what I would recommend is, of course, on the way down to the European elections, that people should turn up, because politicians work very well. If there are questions, if there are answers required, then they react. But possibly the even more effective European campaign could, if people go in the framework of the next national campaign they see, go down to the events and ask people running for the national parliament, hey, what is your impact on Europe? What are you going to do in our national parliament for or against Europe? Just to force them to put the cards on the table. So I think this is very important, and the addressability of politicians. I mean, I have a German background, so okay, if I get mass mails, if I get mass mails from 1,500 citizens with Andy123@web.de, I'm not answering. But if I get something with a reasonable question, if there are many, I try to concentrate on my region. But if there are not so many, I answer to the colleagues. You can make the litmus test if you want, and write me in the next days, Rainer, with AI, Rainer.Wieland@Europa.EU. Possibly you can write that in, type that in chat. So try, test it, try to reach me, and you will even get a response. That I saw your mail, so it's not going into the waste bin. I think if politicians a chance to bring reasonable questions, not over mass mails and those things, where it's very easy to click to tick a box and then send it to all parliaments in the world. We are not so keen to answer that, but we do, and we see the numbers. But if you address individually a politician, you will get a reaction from me.
Very good. So you wish for the direct contact to the citizens. That's great. I see another dream here in the chat. Somebody's dreaming of a high-speed train network for us to travel from Brussels to Barcelona or Napoli in 5-6 hours, and making flights in the EU unnecessary. And here comes my question to you. You personally, what is your vision, your wish for the future of Europe? And you're also president of the Union of European Federalists. It's called Europa Union Deutschland in German. So what is the wishes or the visions of the Federalists, and what is your personal vision?
I think, I mean, this is possibly already expression with high inflation, to say we need some men to the moon projects, or we need lighthouse projects. Of course, we have some, and sometimes people underestimate it. We have Schengen, we have roaming, we have the euro, we have Galileo, we have the single market, we have the freedom of movement for people inside Europe. And what you addressed with the high-speed train, we addressed it with the TEN project, TEN, Trans-European Networks, and we have it for also for flights. We have it also for cars, but we have it for trains. We have it for waterways, and I think we try to have it and should speed up with energy lines in Europe. But if you look to the high-speed train network you have in Europe, I mean, these are big projects, and it costs a lot of money and a lot of planning. But in the last 20 years, we come forward remarkably. And I come from Stuttgart. I mean, most problems made the resistance in Stuttgart for this project, which is not only Stuttgart-Bratislava, it's not only Paris-Bratislava, it's, if you want, Paris, Turkey, it is Edinburgh, Baghdad. It's the old line, the old line, and I think we need these links, and somehow it's a shame that we do not do it with these. You should help me. The magnet train. I do not know the English word, unfortunately. Magnetschwebebahn. I mean, this is the technology which is possibly even better than our classic high-speed trains. But this is the future.
It would be different technology, magnetic. We kind of know it, I think, from the Japanese. Is it?
No, it's from Germany. It's from
You have from
Germany.
Germany a Magnetbahn.
The Transrapid was a German functional train, which unfortunately was not developed any further. So he had the technology already.
The interesting thing that I think I can name firms here. Thyssen is producing with that technology the multi, a lift, which is without any ropes working, and it cannot only work that way, always also can work that way. It's very interesting.
So may I conclude your personal visions are going in the direction of innovation, of new solutions for old problems, of better infrastructure on all levels?
Innovation. I'm very convinced that on all fields, the future comes from the front and not from the backside. The future comes always from the front, and we should try to be technology neutral. Yeah, the heads of human beings are round, that they can think in all directions, and we should not artificially reduce the direction of our innovation. And I mean, if you look in history, we never developed a vaccine so fast in the pandemic. And 3 out of the 4 still existing ones, they come with the participation and support from Europe. And it comes from free societies where no university is guided into a certain direction, and there were no prohibitions to think in a certain direction are existing. So open-minded societies will ever deliver the better solution. If a solution is problematic, we have to think about, of course, but we should not squeeze out certain directions. And I think in the long run we are too slow, possibly, but in the long run we will also see that the energy problems can be resolved, and we will address cancer and all these things. So, but we need to do things together, because for a single country they are too big.
So let me say thank you at that point. And so we still have some time for our second guest, and wish you all the best.
Mr. Mimbutsky, thank you. Magnetic levitation train, or maglev. So I tried to.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Yes. Well, all the best to you. Thanks for being here with us, and have a great summer still. And be ready for the upcoming elections, for many mails coming in after that.
Yes, take care, and don't forget, if you don't go to vote, you support those who want you, who you want, those who you personally want the least, yeah, because they have the strongest interest that you don't go to the elections.
Thank you very much. Goodbye for tonight.
Bye.
All right, so that was an interesting intervention. We still have many questions, at least I have still many questions, and I'm looking very much forward to our second guest now, and hope he will answer a lot of them, because we of course want to know about the great visions of the Union of European Federalists for the future. They have a lot of crazy and great ideas. And we are waiting for a second guest, and let's see if the technology will allow us to connect. Everyone seems to be somewhere else than usually, not in the office on a Friday evening in the middle of summer. I think we can understand that, Dirk. Can't we?
Yes, why am I here? Why am I not somewhere at the beach? I don't understand. I make a mistake here.
No,
What are we
here for
doing?
all of you, and we're so grateful that you are here with us. So don't forget to write your visions and wishes and ideas for a better, a stronger, a safer, a more peaceful, whatever Europe you like, into the chat. We will discuss it a little later. We're still waiting for our guest. So while we're waiting, I think I could ask you, Dirk, the next
Yes.
question, if you are ready. So I would.
Okay, we
Okay,
got a message from the director. They still have problems.
but
So
we will see what's coming up now. I have actually a little bit of a summary of last year's conference of the future of Europe. So it's not the first time that people talk about the future of Europe today. So there was a 1-year process. This was the so far biggest participation process of the European Union. And it was, I think, 19,000 ideas almost have been submitted. Hundreds of people have been live discussing. Thousands of people have been on events. And in the end, it all boiled down to a paper consisting of 49 pretty concrete measures and over 300 concrete proposals. And there have been great ideas, to be honest. And I would like to propose some of them to you, what you say. And please get inspired to write your visions into the chat. I'm not tired to mention it again. So most of the topics that the citizens brought in were really, really interesting and very palpable. So, for example, to promote measures against food waste, or to limit light pollution, or to invest in high speed and night trains. Yes, we heard it already today. To establish a common minimum healthcare standard at the EU level, covering also prevention and accessibility. So this is what people want, yes, and of course they want it. To prevent old age poverty by introducing minimum pensions, or to consider changing the names of EU institutions. I like that very much. To clarify their functions and respective role in the EU. So, for example, the Council of the EU should be called the Senate of the EU, and the European Commission should be called, or could be called, the Executive Commission of the EU. So anyway, that we are not confused anymore by the many councils that there seem to be. Also, one wish was a value-based foreign policy. So that whoever we make deals with, or we work together with, or have to obey at least a certain level of, I don't know, human rights and democracy basics. So all these ideas seem great. Some of them, of course, and unfortunately, don't fall in or under the treaties as they are in this very moment. So, dear Dirk, what do you say when you hear those wishes of the people?
It's like Christmas. I have a lot of wishes. Christmas. I never get any presents I want. I get rubbish, but that's my life. And in a way, it's a little bit like this when I have this kind of discussion. As you rightly said, we have a lot of wishes which are not covered by the current treaties. I think we need a reform of the European treaties, which is a very, very difficult process, because this can only be done unanimously. Everyone has to agree, and we know how the political landscape is right now. So I think that is a challenge which cannot be tackled in the foreseeable future. And that means that we cannot include more new political fields into the authority of the European Union, as long as we do not have changed the treaty, at least in some aspects. And I think that is the very basic issue here, that many of these wishes have to be started to communicate it on the national level. Or like our guest just said, you have to start to talk to your own politicians, ask them, what are you doing in regard to the reform and the development of the European Union? What is your standpoint? Take a look above the national level, take a look above what you do there, and give me an answer to that question. Because right now it is the case that any change in regard to the European Union, any change in part of structure, politics, basic rules and regulations will come from the national level. Start at the national level. If you want to campaign, if you want to change things, you have to talk on a national level. We do not have a European political arena yet where we can act independently from our national heritage. That is one of the major stumbling blocks, but also stepping steps. We have to take that step on the national level, and then from the national level we can go to the European. That's how it is. It's a very long and complicated journey. I like many of these goals. I like many of these ideas. I find them highly fascinating. It was a very constructive discussion process. Many intelligent people have given very nice visions, but just writing them on a paper is not enough. We have to now talk to our national politicians to bring them to the European level, because that's unfortunately the way we are doing politics right now.
And you totally nailed the next question that is actually in the chat, or the next comment. It would be nice if decisions at European level could be implemented more quickly. It often takes a very long time, that is my impression, whoever wrote it, until they are transposed into national laws that would perhaps give people a more European feeling. So what do you say to that time gap between decision making on the European level and then actually implementation on the national level?
That is normal. I mean, we have the same when we have a law on national level, and before the implementation comes and all the rules and regulations are written down, you have a time gap. There's always there. There's no, in a democratic society, there's no immediate decision making, with the exception of a crisis situation. But if you want to have a steady development of political processes and of laws and regulations, there is always the gap of discussion leading towards a decision, and then the gap from implementing the decision. And we have to consider the fact that those implementing these decisions are normally not a European bureaucracy, it's the national bureaucracies. So again, many of the decisions, some of them are direct law in all the member states, but some have then to be changed into national law. So national law has to be changed to include the European decisions. And that is the result of the fact that we don't have a political union. We still need the legitimacy of the nation state to implement most of these things. And that makes these processes very long. So this can be solved partly by more direct competencies, giving them to the European level, so that some of these intermediaries will be cut out. That is the challenge for the future.
So as I see, our guest is still in the backstage area and I think is still having problems with the video. I will now dare to ask you the question that was actually for him, the vice president of UEF. So you get it, because I know you know all about the federalist ideas. The European federalists have many ideas to actually tackle exactly what you said right now. So to intensify the political processes on the European level so that there will be quicker decisions on more competencies, like also on the social field, for example, or health field. You already mentioned the United States of Europe. Let's start with something big and basic and general. How would that work if it worked?
Well, I think we had some very nice idea, which kind of failed. That was have a European constitutional process, because what we now have is a European treaty. But if you want to make more steps in regard to a political union, you need something every country has, and that's a constitution. We started this kind of process. It didn't work out. Then we took the alternative road and have treaties instead. But if you want to seriously work on the political union, we need to have a constitutional process. We need to have a constitutional conference which is elected, which has the task and the mandate to develop such a constitution, and can also then put it in force without like running around to ask every member state of its approval. Now there's a problem already. I have to point it out. We have to look into the constitutions of the member states, and not all constitutions of the member states allow to give so much of the national authority to a higher level. So again, this is a constitutional debate you have to have in every single member state first. Are our constitutions fit? And do they allow us to gear towards the political union on the European level? Or are there certain restrictions we cannot go beyond? And therefore, we might have to have a national debate first. So whatever it takes, it will be an extremely lengthy political process. It will take a lot of time, but it is worth to start it in order to convince people that this might actually be a good idea, but don't expect it to be fast and easy.
Okay, constitution, great idea. On the way to the United States of Europe, there are some other federalist ideas out there. For example, to change the electoral laws so that, for example, people can vote politicians from other countries, so-called transnational lists, or even transnational parties could be implemented. The end of anonymity is one of the things they really would like to achieve. And I think many people more. Here comes the expert to tell us more. Hello, let me introduce you first, and we hope we have a stable connection with you. So you can see in a second, Mr. Ruiz Devesa. Domènec Ruiz Devesa. Yes, we can hear you. Welcome,
Very
welcome. Today it's all about the future of Europe. I think you've heard it. Nevertheless, we will start by looking.
I cannot hear you now, but.
Oh, you cannot hear me. That is not so good for the questions.
Not helpful.
Perhaps, I have an idea. Dear
I can
Regie,
hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay.
Do you hear us?
Excellent.
Wonderful.
Yes, I hear you. Loud and
Very
clear.
good.
All right. Let me introduce you a bit to our listeners. You studied law and economics, political sciences and sociology, as well as European studies. You have been a consultant and an educational specialist. And in 2019, you became a member of the European Parliament. Here, you're a member of the Committee on Constitutional Affairs and a substitute on the Committee on Civil Liberties and on the Committee of Petitions, to name just those very relevant for our today's topic. Since 2021, you are also a Parliament's delegate to the Conference on the Future of Europe, and you're a vice president of the UEF. And here comes my first question, and this is actually about the Conference on the Future of Europe. And to say a little bit more about that, you have been part of that process as representative for your party, the S&D. The former UEF president, Sandro Gozi, was a representative of Renew there. And Anna Echtdorf, the general secretary of the UEF at the time, represented the UEF at the conference. So through diverse channels, the European Federalists were center stage in this process. And a lot of strong ideas have been submitted and were discussed. And now I would like to hear from you, what were in your idea and in your experience the best ideas of the Conference of the Future of Europe? What were the most interesting, most innovative ideas? And what do people want when it comes to democratic participation in general and to European elections in particular? How could the future of Europe, should the future of Europe look like? I hope you understood.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Here we go.
It was a good start.
He's on a boat, as you can see, somewhere in the seas. I don't know, and the connection is very, very feeble, unfortunately.
Oh,
Okay.
what
Well,
a
he heard
regret.
your question. He was happy about the question.
It's too weak.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was happy about your question. At least that's a good thing. Nana.
Yeah, all right. I really wanted to know about, he was center stage at the future conference. What is actually what people want? Because there were many, many great ideas. And what are the Federalist ideas? So
I want to be on a boat right now as well. So maybe we can talk about that if we talk about future. I mean,
yeah,
no?
that's true. We will manifest it, as well as our dear chat says, I wish always winter time because of my
I
biorhythm.
want beach. No, I want a lot of beach and sun. Sorry,
So if you have to decide between winter time forever or beach, you take the boat and the beach. All right.
I'm Mr. Beach.
I hear you. So, okay, I would have a lot of questions for Mr. Ruiz Devesa, because there's also the European Federalists, they have a campaign for treaty change to actually be able to have a more influence on the European level and to really reopen those treaties for the next step of European unity, let's say. Anyway, let's see in the chat if there are some other crazy and wonderful wishes from your side, dear people.
I would like to pick up something from this chat, actually, and that is what we already mentioned. That is this idea of the high-speed trains, and I would like to emphasize this because I'm traveling a lot by train, too much actually. And if you know Germany, it's not funny to travel by train in Germany, right? You're stranded very often. But I'm collecting a lot of these bonus points, and after every year I can get a free international ticket. But it's only for one way directly. So from Germany to one European destination directly, I cannot change trains. And then I checked, okay, where can I go directly with a train without changing trains from Germany? Which European destinations are there? I don't want to go Vienna because Vienna is really boring. I don't want to go there again. So I said, okay, is there another place? So this year I was able to travel to Marseille, which is much more beautiful than, and because they have a beach, that's the point.
That makes sense.
You understand. So,
okay.
but when I made the list of destinations I can go directly, which are a little bit more far away, not just in the directly neighboring country, like maybe 2 or 3 hours, then the possibility for me to travel was diminished. I cannot go directly to Rome, for example. I have to change trains, at least in Milano. Yeah, I can go to Paris, but I'm in Saarbrücken, that's around the corner anyway. And there's many areas, even capitals, where I cannot go sit in a train in Germany and go directly bus through. That is something I really dislike. That is something we can really work on, and we don't need to make very big changes. We have to work together better in our train systems and maybe some new trucks, but all in all, to have at least direct trains which connect the major cities in the European Union. That would be a big advantage. And yes, I would be ready to sit for 6 or 7 hours in a train and avoid the plane if I don't have to change, if I don't have to be afraid to miss a connection, everything. If I could just sit down and go through, that is possible. That would be a big step forward already, and I'm looking forward to it. That is something I still want to experience in my life.
I think that is a great wish.
Yes.
Yes, please. We hear something in our
Yeah,
ears.
listen,
You
we have
don't hear
voices.
it.
We have voices. Don't be afraid. We hear voices. Yes.
All right. Okay. Very exciting. We are trying to get Mr. Ruiz Devesa again.
Yes, he's in
Um,
space. He's on his way to Mars,
Yeah.
and therefore we have a very difficult connection situation. We try again one time.
I love the chat now. Many people think that Europe interferes in too many small things. Dear Dirk, I want to ask you exactly the opposite of that question. What role has the EU in saving the world, actually? Because, of course, we want to make every citizen happy. That would be one side. Might be the small things. I don't know. But what about the world and the rest of the world? Do we have to do it all alone? Do we have to do it at
Well,
all?
we are all living on the same planet, so we should have an interest in saving the world. The problem is that, of course, that the ideas of what is necessary to save the world will be very different from region to region. So I think we have to start doing that in Europe and prove that some things we do are working. And by that, by giving a good example, maybe other people will be motivated to follow that line. But for that purpose, we need to do good things which work and which are affordable and which are feasible and which can be implemented. If we show the world that these things can be done in a positive way without wiggling the finger, but showing that things can be done in certain ways, then there's the possibility to learn, to exchange. Maybe we can learn from other good examples outside the European Union. I think there are many we can use, we can pick up. And this kind of discussion and this kind of process will then reinvigorate each other. And that would be wonderful. I don't think we can walk around in the world and tell people what they should do. We cannot walk around in the world and tell them, okay, look, we are the European. We know how it's going. Follow our example. No, we should be silent and just show, don't tell. And that is the best way to convince. So we have to put our own house in order first. And that is something we should start right away.
All right, we have to change the missing European sphere. I like that idea a lot. How about having an EU RRD, so a broadcasting, public broadcasting system on the EU level with a common program of all national public broadcasters offering a crime program, something like that. But I just thought about the EU crimes. Okay, sorry, my ideas go chaotic right now. A European daily soap. Oh my God, I love that. A real-time reality show. A cooking program, and of course soccer, politician soccer. My mind goes crazy with that comment. Thank you so much for that inspiring European television ideas. I think there have been some approaches, but they all went bankrupt. Only the sports channel and news channel, I think, worked.
Well, we have Arte as a German French endeavor, which is quality programming. But I think the point here is it's not just about quality programming. And I have to see that actually it's the streaming services like Netflix who are now fulfilling that role. If you see how many European productions from different European countries we would have never seen otherwise, be it crime stories or soap operas, are now available to us because Netflix is producing them or encouraging production. There we now see that there's a lot going on which we never knew. That this is very interesting Portuguese, or now recently I saw a Luxembourgian crime series on Netflix. I didn't even know that Luxembourg is producing crime series. It was like I'm living there like 1 hour away from there. It was very interesting. So, but I think the idea of having a European broadcasting system, that is a very good thing. And I want to pick up also what our guest said, our first guest who was able to communicate with us, to be able to broadcast also, for example, live from the European Parliament in some important areas for everyone with translation or subtitles. That would be a good thing. So I think the idea of having something like a European broadcaster is feasible. We should follow it. And we should, I think we should pursue this goal because it could very much help to have a better understanding for each other.
Thank you so much. We had the great idea that we could only audio have the audio of our guest. Is that an option, dear Regie, or is our time slot over anyway? So, uh, all right, they try it. So for all the others, all right. Well,
So we are
anyway, it is already 9 o'clock. We will still give some minutes time. So let's see if he comes back because we would like to use the chance. I actually love somebody who is called Listen to Good Music, and he just or she just writes, please. So listen to good music, please. That would be my wish for the world as well. Dear Dirk, are you somehow now ready to be really visionary with some concrete ideas? All right. The question is, what are the three most significant changes the EU should make today, or at least next year, to become better equipped to deal with the world's challenges of today and tomorrow? Is there anything that you say that has to happen now?
if you don't want to change the European treaties, you have a big problem, because we are already doing, in a given political framework, with the political actors we have and all the differences and sometimes animosities we have in between, we already doing what we can. I fear that if you don't change the legal framework, and if you don't shift around some of the competencies and authorities within the European Union, you will not have an achievement of a much better system which can tackle problems better. There's one exception, and that is in our hands, and that is the outcome of the European elections. We have already heard that the European Parliament is actually doing more than some people think. It's not teethless like it was maybe 30 years ago. But in order to be our teeth, to bite politically, we have to make it strong, and we have to make it strong by voting for democratic parties. I don't care if they are conservative or liberal or socialist. I don't really care, as long as they're democratic. And they have this minimal consensus they can talk upon, and they can base their discussions upon, and have a compromise on important issues. And that is our responsibility, all of us who will go to the elections in June of next year.
I'm not giving any recommendation, but I'm giving information that there is something like federalists within the European Parliament, and they come from almost all different parties. So whatever you prefer, of course, they don't come from the nationalists or right-wing parties, because they wouldn't support federalist ideas. But you find a lot of, I think there are over 70 now, members of the European Parliament that are federalists in the so-called Spinelli group. If you want to just check that out, that might be helpful. And Rainer Wieland just wrote in the chat, thank you so much for being here with us. You can follow the EP, the European Parliament sessions, on all of the 24 official languages all the time.
Yes.
In the internet. Of course,
Yes.
we do that. The idea would be now to really have a summarized best of version in the form of a broadcaster, a European broadcasting system.
It can be strenuous.
So yes, it can be. You really have to want it to do so. Yes, but thank you for being here with us. All right. Mr. Ruiz Devesa now wishes us all the best, if I may say so, because he has not the chance to even come with a good enough audio to us. So thank you very much for trying. Thank you for joining us from your holiday, for straining your nerves in this more than 1 hour to try to be with us. And well, we are already also at 9 o'clock now. So are there any famous last words from your side for today's episode, Dirk?
But I already had the famous last words.
Okay,
I already told
just
everyone,
give you the chance.
Go to the stupid elections in June next year. Vote democratic, vote pro-European. You will have a very big impact, even by just putting this one cross. Please do so. And we will repeat that every month now until June next year.
So thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us. Love you guys. That is also perfect last words. Thank you for that. We love you too. Thank you for being here with us. We will come back at least and latest on the 13th of September, Dirk and me, because we will do a live comment on Ursula von der Leyen's speech address about the State of the Union address to the European Parliament. She is the European Commission's president, if you didn't know that. So we will try to comment that in a funny yet informative way, as funny as we might be, but we always have a smile in our hearts, so this at least will shine with us. And this will be very interesting. I had the chance to do that last year, and it was really great because we get a great summary of what happened in the last years during the last period of the European Parliament, and what are the challenges actual right now and what is coming up. So that will be really great. And yeah, we will keep on discussing Europe's hottest topics, be it in this format, be it in Europa Jetzt or Europe Now in German and English. And we all hope to see you again and wish you a lovely evening. Thank you for being here.
Bye-bye.
More Europe now. More Europe now. More Europe now. Hosted by Nana Walzer with resident expert Dirk van den Boom and special guests.